Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Jemima. I'll be your instructor throughout the data analytics training program. So to recap on what this program is all about, this program will train learners on how to use Python to better understand the data, to identify inconsistencies and discrepancies in the data, so to clean the data and to explore the data to identify trends, patterns, and make decisions to develop and test hypotheses based on the interest and observations in the data, and to perform intelligent analytics such as machine learning and predictive analytics. Um, Throughout this course, we'll be using Python. So we need a software in order to program in Python, and we have chosen to use Visual Studio Code for several reasons. The first reason is open source, so it can be installed in Microsoft and also Apple. It's cross-platform. It also can you can also program in many languages. So you can use Python if you are interested in Java, in SQL. You can also use this IDE or this software. One of the most important, it has a live sharing extension or a live sharing capability, which will enable me, the instructor, to be able to support you remotely. So I'll be able to get into your code from the comfort of your home or virtually, help you to debug the code and help you to support you while teaching you Python. It's also very seamless with Git. Obviously, you will learn more about Git. Git is very important for version control, so keeping the different versions of your code as you progress over time so that you can be able to roll back in case of any issues. It has an amazing community support in case of any problem. So we'll be installing Visual Studio Code. We'll also install Python on this software. We install Jupyter Notebooks. In our first lecture, I'll explain to you what Jupyter Notebooks is. But Jupyter Notebooks is just a different version of Python which enables easy interaction. So it's very good when you are learning Python or when you're teaching Python to new people. It's also good for debugging your code very easily. So we'll be using Jupyter Notebooks throughout this training. And most often, after we use Jupyter Notebook, we'll convert our Jupyter Notebooks back to Python scripts, which are easy to execute. And we will use Copilot to facilitate our program. With Copilot, a lot of beginners will be able to do amazing things. So when you just write your comments or just tell the program what you expect, the program will be able to generate this code for you. As I said, the live sharing extension will be amazing for communication and for people to remotely support each other within our data analytics community. And we will test the program after we install this. I'll also show you how to create a GitHub account and also how to get a Copilot account as well. We'll install other extensions such as Fast API, Docker request. This will be used much later in the course to deploy our machine learning algorithms and to send requests and get information from the model during deployment. So we'll move on straight away to a demo of how to install the software. Thank you.
So let's start by installing Visual Studio. So let's go to Google Chrome. So we have Visual Studio. Obviously, one Visual Studio Code and not Visual Studio. So Visual Studio Code. And we have that. Let's just accept this. And we have download for Windows. And it's downloading. So after we install Visual Studio, the next thing we're going to do is to install Python within Visual Studio. So we go to, it is installed, so we go there. If we go to downloads, I think, you go to downloads, you have your Visual Studio and you can run that. And we are installing Visual Studio, so that's being installed. I will create a desktop icon and we are installing Visual Studio now. So I'll get back Okay, let's just wait. I think it's very fast. It installs very fast. Okay. So, okay, that has been installed. So we finish. It launches Visual Studio Code. And we have our Visual Studio Code. So the next thing is we have to go to extensions. Under extensions, we have to look forward Python. So we need Python extension, and we have seen Python extension. So Python languages supports with extension access. So we install this. So this is the Python we want. So it's by Microsoft. Remember, it's by Microsoft. It has 122 million downloads. So we install, and that's installing. So that's installing Python within the Visual Studio Code. So hopefully all goes well. Should I pause? Okay, that has been installed. So you get started with Python. You can open a Python project. You can create a Python file. So let's create a Python file, for example. Create a Python file. So let's just write a simple Python print hello world, and let's see if it executes. So no Python interpreter is selected. Please select. So let's select a Python interpreter. Python is not installed. So Python has been installed in the software, but it has not been installed in your computer. So that said, if you click on Python has not been installed, click on instructions. It will take you to Microsoft Store to get the Python. So, so we are in the Microsoft Store, so you can get Python. If you are not using Microsoft, you can easily just go to the browser and click on Python, and you can go to Welcome Python, and you can go to Downloads, and you're going to see which version. If you're on Mac, you just click on Mac, and you'll see which version of Mac you want to download. You can download the latest, which version of Mac, and that would download and install. You download the Python to your computer and you install it. But since we are on Windows, Windows has the Microsoft Store, so you can easily get the Python from the Microsoft Store. So we get the Python we want. So that's installing. So you started downloading. Hopefully it doesn't take long. So while that is downloading, let's go quickly and install Jupyter as well. So we go now to the extensions and we install Jupyter. So this is a Jupyter again. It's a Microsoft by Jupyter by Microsoft again. So let's close this. We have the Jupyter, which has about 78 million downloads. So if we go to install, so Jupyter is installing. So we're installing Jupyter. Let's check if the Python has been installed. So Jupyter has been installed. Let's go back and check Python. So now we have Python, which has been installed. So to check if Python has been installed, you just have to go to, they have told you how to check. So if you click on Python 3.1 or Python version, so let's do that. Let's check if Python has been installed. So we open a new terminal, and we simply click on Python version. And we see that Python is now installed. If we go back to the Python script we wrote print hello world. Let's see if it runs now. So that's run Python. And let's select a Python interpreter. Now we have Python in our Visual Studio, and we click on Python. Did that run successfully? Let's see. Let's try it again. Sorry, Python. Sorry, run Python script. Okay, it wants to save Python first. So let's save the file. Let's save the file. Let's save test.python. So let's save this file. It's test.python. So let's run this file now. So you see it runs in now. So that's one Python file. You see it has printed hello world here. So the file name is test.py and we have written print hello world and it has printed us hello world. So Python has been successfully installed in our IDE. Let's go back to Jupyter. Jupyter has been installed. So let's test Jupyter as well. So if we go to, let's create a new file. So let's create a new file. Let's make sure it's a Jupyter notebook file. And let's find a kernel for the file. So let's find for Jupyter kernels. Again, it's trying to detect kernels. It can't find any kernel for the file. So that's fine. We know what to do. So in order for us to be able to install the kernel, we go again, we need to install. So Jupyter has been installed again in the software, but we need to install the kernel in our computer. So let's install the kernel. The kernel is simply just you can look at it as a server. So if we go to new terminal, let's do pip install kernel. So we want to install the Jupyter notebook kernel. Let's see if that works. So it's collecting the kernel, it's downloading. It's downloading the kernel. It's installing packages, so many packages including the kernel. You can see the kernel here and other packages which support the kernel. So fingers crossed that would install. Fingers crossed that will install. We had a warning. Hopefully that doesn't affect the installation. Another warning. Warnings are not bad when you're talking about Python. What you don't want is an error. So warnings are okay. Another warning. And he has successfully installed the kernel. So we are good to go. So let's create the same thing. Let's put print in this kernel, print hello world. And you're going to see the difference between the kernel and the script. So now it's the same thing, but now it's a very interactive. You can see you can create new cells in the kernel, create new cells and do other things like print Dr. Jemima, and you can execute specific cells. You see the kernel is more interactive. With the script, you execute everything in that file. So you cannot select a specific section of the file to execute. You just execute the entire everything in that file. While with a kernel, you see that you can actually, okay, let's allow access. I don't know what that means. Okay, some firewall or something. So while with the kernel, you see that you can actually execute different parts of the kernel. So you can write things, execute things, test things, is more interactive. So let's do this. I see hello world. If I execute this, I see Dr. Jemima. So the kernel has been installed. We can close this. We can also save, let's say not save. Let's close this. And let's reopen Visual Studio once again. So let's go to Visual Studio Code. So now we are back in a new code. We have installed our Python. We have installed our Jupyter into the Visual Studio. So let's go to a new file. Let's create a new file. As I said, we'll most likely be using Jupyter notebooks, and
we will convert these Jupyter notebooks to Python scripts to execute, but for interaction and learning purposes, we use Jupyter Notebook. So let's click on Jupyter Notebook. It's looking for a kernel and it finds a kernel. You see the kernel has already been found. So we put again print installation complete. Let's execute that cell. Installation complete. So thank you. The next thing we'll be doing is, so let's minimize this. We need to create our GitHub account. So for those who do not have a GitHub account, let's create a GitHub account. So we need a GitHub account. So I'm now at GitHub. I do sign up. And let's create a GitHub. So let's do for our course, let's do training at cloudedequity.com. Let's do continue. Let's create a password for us. Obviously, you wouldn't know my password. Very long. Okay, it tells us it's strong. And let's create a username is clouded data. Clouded data is analytics. It's available. So that is our username, clouded data analytics. We could continue and receive occasional product updates and announcements, maybe, and we go to continue. So we need to verify our account. So in order to verify the account, I think they will send me an email. So verify, protecting your account, please solve the puzzle. It's trying to, let's verify. So we'll just solve this puzzle, which submit and our account is created. So an email has been sent to my, let's see if I check my email, 1 minute. I've received the email and let's put in the code. So I don't want to save this in this laptop. And you have created your account successfully. So let's log in. So we have training at cloudedequity.com. My password, let's see, and we have logged in. So welcome to GitHub. How many members will you be working with? As I said, GitHub is good for collaboration within teams. So are you a teacher? Are you a student? So we can skip this personalized and whatever, and we can skip this for now. And we are in GitHub. This will be overwhelming. Don't bother about this. We wouldn't be using this in the first few lectures. So don't stress too much about the Git, but let's create our first repository where we'll be keeping the data for our for our training. So if we create a repository, so this is where we'll be storing all the data. So we have created repository created. Name of repository, let's give it a name. So it's called, let's call repository data analytics course 1. So that's the name of our repository. We create it. So you see we have created our repository. It's private, so people will not be able to see it in the public. And that's it. So we can create a file in the repository. Let's create a README file. Let's create a README file in the repository. Data analytics course, we commit, and we just commit. And that's our repository. So we have a repository called Data Analytics Course 1, and we just have a README. The README will always tell you more about the repository. And we can create our first folder in our repository
which is our course 1. So let's create a folder, create a new file. So the first folder will be introduction, and we can give it a file. Let's just give it a git ignore file for now. Yeah, let's just give it a git ignore file. So we commit this, and we have our data analytics, and we have our introduction folder. So this is where I would save all the files we need for the introduction for you to be able to clone. So you'll be able to clone this repository and get and have access to our course. So that's it for now. So that's just basically. So if we go now to So after we create our GitHub account, the next thing we do is to install Git. So we go to Git for Windows, or you can have Git for Mac, and you go to click here to download the Git, and you install Git into your computer. After you've installed Git into your computer, so now you have registered for Git and you have Git installed in your computer. Where you go to now is you go to extensions and you click on GitHub Copilot. We want to install Copilot. It's an extension of GitHub. So we click on GitHub Copilot. This is installed. So let's just, for example, uninstall it. So let's install it. Imagine it wasn't installed. So yes, GitHub for Copilot is now installed. So what we do now is we need to sign in. So this is GitHub for Copilot. We need to sign in to GitHub in order to have GitHub for Copilot. So sign in to use Git Copilot, we need to sign in to GitHub. So this wants to sign in, let's allow it. So open Visual Code, yes. So it's signing it to Copilot. And I think it's signed in. So if we look, status is ready. So we have GitHub, we have Copilot installed in our Visual Studio Code. So GitHub created data. So let's create import. You see GitHub is doing its magic now. So import pandas, data is equal to, you see it's completing for us. Let's import that data. Obviously there is no data, so we have an error. Yes, we have an error, but the GitHub is there. So if we can create another cell, let's create function. You see, it's even telling you create function to calculate the area of a rectangle, and it tells you define this, it tells you return this, and that's all. So Copilot proposes everything. You just need to give it the comments you want, and it will provide you that function. So your programming becomes very efficient. So thank you. I think we have installed Python, we have installed Jupyter notebooks, we have now installed Git, and we have installed Git Copilot. So I think we are ready to start on the 22nd of June.